And so I bad texted my boyfriend, and he wrote to me, um, wine is eating your brain and it's no longer fun. And that was it, man. That
Wow.
was it. That
Oh,
was like, oh my God, somebody saw that my brain is slipping. Somebody see that I am losing it because I felt this is what I was feeling. I was feeling that my brain was slowly slipping, that I was not as sharp.
welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. What happens when the woman who built an entire career and always knowing what to say sits down for a job interview and the words simply do not come? Sometimes the moment that undoes us is the very moment that finally shows us what we have been running from. Welcome back to the Give a Heck podcast. I'm your host, Dwight Heck, here to help you live life on purpose and not by accident. My guest today spent 25 years as a senior HR executive, the last 8 at Deloitte, reading rooms, coaching people through change, and knowing exactly what to say in almost any situation. Then her corporate career ended on someone else's terms, and shortly after, she sat down for a job interview and froze completely. The frozen moment cracked something open. She realized that knowing is not the same as doing, and that most of us are running on autopilot, driven by the unconscious rather than the conscious mind. We think it is in charge. She is now a clinical hypnotherapist trained in rapid transformational therapy under Marissa Peer, an ICF certified executive coach, and the founder of a method she calls Peel Back, Rewire, Rise. She has done over 1,500 sessions with entrepreneurs and senior leaders, and she is a 9+ years sober, which she says taught her more about the gap between knowing and doing than anything else. Janylene Turcotte, welcome to the Give a Heck podcast. Thanks for coming on and agreeing to share some of your life journey.
Thank you, Dwight, for inviting me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. And by the way, you can call me JT. Most English speaking person call me JT. As you will see, I'm French francophone. You'll hear my accent, but so you can call me JT.
Thank you. I appreciate it. To the listeners that have been around for a long time or the viewers on YouTube, you know that I take the name very serious. So even before we hit record, I practiced. I probably still didn't say it the best, but I respect somebody's given name, right? It is what it is. So thank you so much, JT. I really appreciate it. I look forward to this supercharged conversation. And I say supercharged because as my listeners know or viewers, I put a lot of effort into prepping for this show. And buckle up, listeners. You're in for a treat. Such great information that JT is going to share with us. So, JT, I always like to start at the beginning because our origins absolutely shape everything, and people don't take it serious enough. Yes, the rearview mirror is small for a reason, but our past can be indicative of how we respond, how we move forward, or how we get stuck. So, I genuinely believe these trials and tribulations again shape everything about us. Could you do me a favor? Take me back. Where did your story actually start? Tell us whatever you feel comfortable up to where you want to stop.
Okay. So I was born in a very sheltered environment, like in rural Quebec, where, amongst Francophone mainly, I started to speak English in my teenage years. But and I was talking about it with a friend earlier today. Like we were brought up thinking that the people are good people and that, and that kind of, I would say, Catholic kind of background, even though we were not practicing or we're not religious, but the values of forgiving, people are good, giving the benefit of the doubt, etc., was really part of our upbringing. So the way to see the world, I think I started to realize that there were people that were mean or, really later in life. Although I was bullied in school, at the time I didn't think that they were bad. I thought that I was bad. So, the world was still, they were right and I was wrong, and there was something wrong about me. That's why I was getting bullied. This led me eventually to drink, which the reason was that I wanted to fit in. I wanted to I wanted to be like everybody, and I felt that I was so different. And today, in my, in my understanding of the world, I know that this is one of the beliefs that you carry on. Like I'm too different, I can't connect. So I took kind of the alcohol as a way to connect and make friends and be funny and etc. So I would say my upbringing, like I was the oldest of a family of four. My parents always encourage us to realize our dream. Our parents always told us that everything was possible, sometimes to a fault. Like I say to people, like I crossed Canada hitchhiking when I was 18-year-old, right? And I would never let my granddaughter do that today. But at the time, it was like we're going out west, right? We're going to Banff, we're going to Vancouver, we're going to explore the country. And it was very normal, or it was not so bad to do that at the time. So I was adventurous, and our parents, I think tomorrow morning I would tell my mother I want to become a hairdresser. She would say, fine, go for it. What are you going to do? What's the plan? I think she would encourage me. Our parents have always encouraged us to realize whatever we wanted to do in life, which is, I think, a great gift that I got from them that I'm very grateful for.
Well, that's amazing. I was just jotting some notes down here. Catholic upbringing, but not active. Well, for those listening or watching, they know I'm Catholic. I was brought up Catholic. It was actually, we were active, practicing Catholics, going to church, and that Catholic guilt. I wrote that down. The Catholic guilt that exists, whether or not, because I know many people that I grew up with, they were Catholic label, but they weren't necessarily practicing Catholic. It doesn't mean that they didn't have that learned behavior passed on to them from their parents' generation. They may have decided they didn't want to be their parents and go to church or do all the different nuances within the Christian Catholic faith, but they still had that learned behavior. They still had many things that slowed them down in some respects because they were confused. Or, the reason I bring that up, you have a lot of things that I find I was bullied too. And I think it had a lot to do with the learned behavior of being kind, you know, turn the other cheek, the list goes on. So I can really relate to that, and wanting to fit in led to you drinking. I even had that at a point in my time in my young life too, where,
Mm.
all these people I knew, they were drinkers, and I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be one of the cool kids. I wanted to be in the in crowd, right? So next thing I know, I was drinking, and really I didn't like it. And fast forward, the reason I bring that up and wanting to see your take on that, look at today, everything that we read, everything we view, see in the media, television shows, movies, slants to normalizing drinking. And it's following a pattern, and it keeps on being taught that learned behavior. So since that came up, I'm going to jump to that part of what I was going to talk further on about drinking. What, so you've been quit for 9 years, correct?
Yes, it's been
Right.
9 years sober now. Yes.
So what was the struggle like? How did what happened within your circle? What happened to the associations around you? Was it difficult? Were you easily accepted because you stopped? Did you find you lost people or gained people in your life? Can you share some of that part of your
Yes.
journey of life?
I think I was fortunate enough. I was the one who was drinking the most in my group. So that's the first thing, right? I was the one who was drinking the most, and I was a solitary drinker as well. I was drinking in the last years of my drinking, I kind of isolate myself, which is mostly what happened when you start to go down the hill. I was very functional. I had a great career, but I was working at home. I think I've lost more friends when I stopped fawning than when I stopped drinking. Right? That's when.
Mhm.
So when I stopped really being nice to everybody, I lost more friends than when I stopped drinking. I think the culture where I came from, also in my family, there was a lot of people around me in my surrounding that had stopped drinking. So it was something that I knew was possible. My parents have helped a lot of people who had alcohol problem or other kinds of problems. So we had them at home sometimes where, they would stay with us, or they would come on Sundays for dinners and stuff like that. My parents would really help people who had some challenges with alcohols or other addictions. And so I one day, it's really interesting how it happened. I drank my life away with my friend Robert. He was drinking as much as me. And then in the morning, at night when he left, when you start bad texting because your brain is kind of fuzzy and you're angry about this thing that happened 3 months ago, and you start to bad text your boyfriend. And so I bad texted my boyfriend, and he wrote to me, um, wine is eating your brain and it's no longer fun. And that was it, man. That
Wow.
was it. That
Oh,
was like, oh my God, somebody saw that my brain is slipping. Somebody see that I am losing it. Because I felt, this is what I was feeling. I was feeling that my brain was slowly slipping, that I was not as sharp, that I had to, and I felt like I knew something was physically happening to me. And I said, oh, somebody saw it. I cannot let that happen. And I woke up in the morning and I called him and I said, that's it. I'm not going to drink again. And I never, ever drank since. Um,
wow.
and it's been a long recovery after that. But I think the most important thing for me was, yeah, I'm gonna, if I kind of saw my future, and I saw myself in the street, like basically, if I continue drinking, I'm not going to be able to work. I'm not going to be able to sustain myself. I'm not going to be able to, so that was it.
Wow. That is powerful. uh, to just have that realization because of, and you might have heard, had you ever heard things from other people, or was it just because he was your boyfriend, or were you having second thoughts at the time and it was just a realization?
No, no, some people even were surprised when I stopped, like saying, really? You really have a problem? Right? Like I was really concealing it very well.
Oh, okay.
Some other people, like my son, my stepson, said, oh, we were thinking if we'd had children, if we would leave the children with you. And that really surprised me, right?
Wow.
Yeah, he said we were starting to discuss that by the time he didn't have children, and he was living with me partly with his girlfriend. And he said, we were talking about it. So,
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Listeners or viewers of the podcast, I've had people on before that have gone through struggles and journeys. And the reason that I wanted to ask more about that is maybe this will be the time that you'll decide, right? Decide that it's time for you. Maybe it's just something that you needed to hear. So I appreciate you, JT, sharing. I know it can be a tough thing for people to share, but really at the end of the day, in order to serve others, we need to sometimes give that vulnerability that this is our life. This is what we were, right? Thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you'd like to share about that part of your life journey?
well, maybe just say to your listener, like if you do decide that this is it, your relationship with alcohol has more. negative impact than positive impact in your life, please see your doctor because we shouldn't stop drinking without seeing a physician. Stopping alcohol like the way I did is not responsible. So,
Oh, okay. That is a great point. A great point. I never thought about that. Especially if you have somebody that's saying that your brain's disconnecting because of alcohol. That is a great thing to add. So thank you very much. I want to step back now. One of the things I found interesting before hypnotherapy, before coaching, you sold encyclopedias door to door.
yes.
I found that amazing. And for those listeners that are younger, encyclopedias. You may not know what they are. They were books. People went door to door. We had the encyclopedias in our house, and then we got the yearly. We had the whole set, and then we had the yearly one that we looked forward to getting, the annual encyclopedia. And it was today's day and age, you can access so much information. And I just found that really interesting. You won awards doing it. Looking back on that, what were you actually learning about people, about yourself in those years? Did you not understand until much later, or was it dawning on you already while you were in that process?
Well, I must go back because encyclopedias started in my life when I was very little. So my father was a curious man, and anytime I had a question for him, he'd say, "Go and look it up in the encyclopedia and come and tell me because I don't know." So I'd have to go look it up and come and tell him, and then he would say, "Oh, that's very curious. I wonder if," and he would throw me another question, and I would go back to the encyclopedia. I could spend like 10, 11, 12, 15 queries like that. This has been very instrumental in my life because he had helped me develop a fantastic memory. I have an amazing memory, but also helped me know how to search. So it's like if I understand our search engine are kind of built, it's like if I know how to search. So I can be a good detective. I thought about being a detective at one point in my life because I thought I was so good. I'm quite good actually. And so encyclopedia have a special place in my heart and in my development. So when I crossed Canada hitchhiking, eventually I ended up working in Banff in a restaurant, like many Quebec people going there learning English. And and after a while, we decided to go to Vancouver. And we were in Vancouver, a bunch of Quebecers, and then we were looking in the ads in the paper at the time for jobs, right? And we were called into this place and it was encyclopedia selling. I said, I can do that. I can do that because I had already that relationship with encyclopedia. Like, right? I was already a disciple. I was already sold on encyclopedia. So it was so easy for me to go out there and knock on the door and tell them that's the best thing in the world. You need to have that in your house. You need that, right? So I was very good. I won many awards. I think one summer, and like that's more than 30 something years ago, I was making $22,000 in my summer between university because I went
Wow.
back after for summers, right? I was doing it in the summer as a summer job and I was making good money. So, and I was traveling because I won all those trips, but I was already really convinced. But what I have learned from what you were asking me is the power of passion, of being passionate about something. And it's the same passion I have today when I have somebody that comes on a sales call or on a discovery call or a strategy call, whatever you want to call it, with me, to see if we are fit or not, if I'm going to take them as a client, if they're going to take me as a hypno coach. It's the passion behind it. It's the same passion. I believe in what I do. I see how good it is for people, what transformations it brings, what tangible things it brings in their life. The same way I was convinced about encyclopedia at the time. It's the same passion. So that to me, that's really what I start learning at an early age. That passion makes a difference. It's a very important ingredient in the making.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Passion, I find, is directly tied to whether or not we're going to have an active purpose that we can stick with, that we can have an intentful life. I tell people that all the time. Like I want to make a lot of money. I want to do this in my life, and maybe it's not money related. I want to do this and this. And I'll say, why? Like, what's your driver behind that? What's the origin behind you saying that to me? What have you done, or what are you willing to do? Are you willing to get outside your comfort zone? Are you willing to skin your knee? Are you willing to get back up, put a band-aid on, and really
Mhm.
discover who you are, your passion? Because if it's a money related thing, I'll say to them, you'll only do as well as your passion, as the person that you're selling to. You're teaching, coaching, whatever. There has to be a passion. People have to know that you're in for it. You're not just that salesperson, because as a coach, really we're selling ours. Everybody sells themselves every single day, even at your job. If you're at a 9 to 5 making a wage, you're selling yourself. So are you passionate about it? You want to make more money? You're passionate about it, you get a raise, you get a promotion. In our industry, if we're entrepreneurs like JT and I, we literally, by having a true passion, people understand it. We can break down barriers, we can break down walls, and you can make a comfortable living. Maybe you were really a go-getter and you make a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I totally agree. The power of passion is really so key in us connecting with others, right? And I find
Well,
it lacking.
it
It's
allows
lacking
me
so
not
much.
to, and it allows me to not sell my service. So that's very important for me. I'm a very good salesperson, but when I have in a discovery call, in a sales call, in a strategy call, I do not sell my services. And I do not want to convince anybody that they need to do that with me. Like, and I refrain myself sometimes from some techniques that I would know or certain things, because the idea for me is I want the person to really want this, to be really committed to this. And we both, choose each other, and then we journey together on whatever the person wants to accomplish. But that is sometimes I could be a lot more salesy than I am in reality when I do, but I don't do it purposely, because I think that bringing somebody in that's been sold the idea but has not really bought into that, the results will not be the same. And for me, I thrive on my clients having tangible, great results. So,
That's amazing, because so many people, like you said, there's certain techniques or things that we can utilize that we learn over time that we could convince people against their will. And the reason I use that little term will is because I look at the fact that throughout my 24 years of doing what I do, helping people live life on purpose and not by accident, the finance part of it is so small part of it. If I can't get them to have acknowledgement of their monsters, their life monsters, or the things that they've learned that are holding them back, and develop a passion so that they are the willing. And I'll ask people, it doesn't sound like you'd be part of the willing right now to do the tough things, to look at your life under a microscope and realize that you've been living on a hamster wheel. And let's continue to talk, right? I'm going to coach you on the life side of your life before we ever talk about the money side, because, and I'll tell them, I'm quite honest with them, in 24 years, people that don't develop a passion for their life, not just about what they do, but for themselves, and where they're going and how they're going to move forward, they're not the willing, they'll slip backwards, right?
mm,
And I look at the people that I've had in my life that are, they've gone to school. They're education people that just constantly taking a new course. They're constantly doing something online, constantly taking night courses, and they never get anywhere because they don't stop and realize that, okay, you've got information. Now, are you willing to apply it? If without action, really,
mm.
where do we get? Our passion has to take us somewhere. So I really liked your response. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we go on to the next thing?
Well, maybe the rebuttal to what you said, because I think
Sure.
sometimes it's not a question of motivation, of willingness. It is a question about the story we tell ourselves subconsciously. And so sometimes the people will, you might conclude that they're not ready or they're not committed or they're not this or they're not that, but it's not really what they are. It's really the story that they're telling themselves subconsciously. And if you go and find out what is the story that they're telling themselves, and they are willing and open to look at that story and say, is it a true story or not today in 2026 in my life? Do I want to change that story? I think sometimes it allows us to, instead of concluding that somebody's not ready or somebody is not doing the work or somebody's not there yet, sometimes it's the story that they tell themselves that make them act in a way that basically we think that they're not there, but it's
No,
just a story.
we're on the same page. You're just
Yeah,
saying it differently. But I appreciate your, making that more palatable for people. That, well, again, everybody hears things differently, so it's great that you
actually.
added on to that. So I appreciate that. So you spent 25 years building a reputation as someone who knew what to say, right? The last date at Deloitte as a senior HR executive. Then you sat down for a job interview after your own corporate career ended and froze. Take me back to that room. What did that moment actually feel like? And the reason I ask this
Mm.
is I've heard this from clients many times that they froze and they thought they had everything together, right?
Yeah.
So can you please share that?
So if I go back a month before that day, I came back and I had a friend at home and I said, you know what? I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I want to go on vacation and come back and not be tired of my vacation. I guess I was still drinking a lot at the time, right? And she said, okay, go to the ashram in the Bahamas. You're going to do yoga and meditation all day and you're going to come back rested and everything. So I said, okay. It's a friend that I really appreciate. She's a yoga instructor and everything. So I went to the Bahamas and came back. And when I came back, I was called in that room and my boss had flew from Toronto to meet with me with the greatest respect. We had the conversation that there was a restructuring. I know there was a restructuring because I was in HR, so I was obviously, managing that transformation we were doing. So I just smiled, right? And I said thank you, right? Because I didn't know why exactly I said thank you, but the future would show me why. What I knew already that I didn't know at the time, that this was going to be the pivot to the greatest gift to a greatest way of achieving and also being myself and contributing to the world in a different way. So I left, and 3 days later, because you're so connected when you have those type of positions, right? So I got a job interview three days later for a VP role at a bank. And I remember she was asking me all those questions, and I'm an HR executive. I should know how to answer. That nothing was coming out that was intelligent. I was sabotaging myself. I was saying stupid things that you never say in an interview. And sorry for using the word stupid, which I rarely
That's
use, but
okay.
I
That is
was saying, but in a sense, like I don't want to, but it was the worst interview I could ever imagine. I would try to write it up. I wouldn't be able to. So anyway, I went back home. It was raining. And I remember I was walking home and it became so clear to me, like, it's not a new executive job that you need to transform your life. Like this is not where you want to be anymore. It's been great. It's been good. It allowed you to do so many things you never thought you would do. And being a francophone in Toronto, as you know, like in those corporate boardroom or in those positions, like it's an accomplishment in a certain way. It's hard for people sometimes to imagine that, but working in another language all day is also very demanding. There's all kinds of other sets of skills that that demand those type of role when it's not your mother tongue, when it's not your. So at the end of the day, I realized that I had to come home and realize that I don't want to be in HR anymore. I hate HR now. I don't I don't want I don't want to fly to Toronto every Monday morning at 6 o'clock. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. So that is really how I came about to, that became clear to me.
So from what happened and after the fact, what was the journey like immediately weeks after in the following months?
So I was in that ashram kind of mood. So I was very laid back. I decided that I would, you know, take it to transform myself, take it to eat well, exercise. But then my drinking really went up. That's my last, that's my, how do we call it? You know, those short at the Olympics when you have that
Oh
short
yeah,
course. Yeah,
I can't think of myself.
that was my 100 meters, whatever. But I was really the last, and I drank my life away. I started earlier and earlier, and drank and drank and drank, and until I had that conversation, right? I think that's really what happened. It's like it was the elastic kind of broke loose, and it was like, okay, now I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to be in a boardroom. I don't have to build that presentation. I don't have to do this. My schedule literally emptied out in a second. I knew everywhere I would be for the next year, every day, meetings, etc., flying, and then suddenly there's nothing in my agenda. It's totally free, totally empty. And I got scared, really. I got really scared. What am I going to do with my life? So I drank. That was the easiest thing to do. I don't have to ask myself too many questions. I'm going to drink. And I drank more and more. And it was kind of the last, um, yeah, 100 meters, I would say.
The last stand, I guess. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. I think many of us, many professionals, or even you can be somebody that's at a job, and we go through a point where we reevaluate our circumstances. I used to be a computer consultant. I used to own a consulting company as a solo entrepreneur, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied. And I turned to addictions too, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that was real because it was easier to mask self-medicating myself, right? And I had to have a come to Dwight, come to Jesus moment where I basically said to myself, is this serving me? Do I want to move on? Do I want to change? And I really do relate to what you're saying. I got to that point where I just okay, this is enough because it was getting to a point where just like you're saying, it would start earlier and earlier, or I'd be in the middle of being that professional and my mind was thinking about it,
Yeah.
thinking
Oh,
about that
yeah.
addiction, right?
Oh, my
And
God.
it can really be overpowering. And I wasn't really present, not just for others. I wasn't 100% present between my 6 inches for myself. And I had to change, right? And I did. Have I been perfect? Absolutely not. I went through valleys of despair, lost people in my life
Mm,
or different circumstances, and slipped back that way. It's real for me, and it's probably real for many people. So
for many people.
congratulations. Yes, congratulations. 9 years and having that realization and staying quit is amazing, right? If I was there, I'd give you a hug and pat you on the back. And I think that's awesome. And it's really good, though, that you talk about this because people need role models. People need mentors. Even if it's not a direct mentor, they need somebody they can look at and go, wow, it's all possible. I can do it too. I need to remind myself what JT's gone through and what she was able to accomplish to continue to stay unstuck, right? So I really enjoyed that. I'm going to go on to something else, unless you'd like to add anything else before we move forward.
Maybe that, you know, for people who are just wondering about, am I drinking too much, or you don't need to be at the bottom. You don't need to hit rock bottom to decide to stop. The young generation, they don't drink, right? They hardly drink, and they enjoy themselves. So I mean, you can absolutely decide that you want a life where you're more present. And that's the real word, is present. Present to everything. Life doesn't become perfect because you become sober. You still have difficulties. You're so much cleaner to take care of them and know what to do and be present. I mean, for me, I would not be doing what I'm doing. I would not be in this interview with you. I would not be here if I would have not stopped drinking. For other people, they can stop way earlier and just have a life where they feel more present. So,
Yeah, I
that's
love
my
that. One of the things that I was thinking about too, and this has been a common theme when I talk to people that have addictive personalities, and we could all have addictive personalities. People listening or watching, you can have addiction to television, you can have addiction to being sad, you can have addiction to
absolutely.
eating, you can have addiction to so many different things. I find though, people justify it when they finally come to a realization, or they're kind of questioning it. I've heard from people in so many different conversations where we're doing discovery to see where they're stuck in their life. They'll justify it and say, well, I stopped for a little bit and then I couldn't sleep properly. I stopped drinking, stopped smoking weed, I stopped doing both or whatever. I need that or I can't sleep properly. And they justify the addiction to a point where they can keep on that hamster wheel and keep it going. And my challenge to them is always, does it really? Are you willing to try, right? To slow down, to quit, or like you would say, go to a medical professional if it's really terribly bad, or maybe even if it's not bad, just to get a different opinion, to be able to change. What would be your advice to somebody if they were using that as their crutch, right? That's the only way I
Well,
can socially talk to people. That's the only way I can sleep properly. I can't be me without it. What would you say?
well, it's not that they're using this as a crutch from my perspective, and I'm actually
Okay.
writing a book on this. So the
That's
idea
awesome.
is that biologically they've been hijacked. Their dopamine system, their reward system has been hijacked. And so it's not a question of not sleeping or this and that. And it's people that go back drinking or continue drinking at that stage. You're not drinking to feel good. They're drinking or using to just not feel bad, right? So at one point, the substance and the dopamine system and the reward system gets so hacked, gets so disrupted that it has nothing to do with willingness. Some people, I would say I'm in that category, get hit by grace. And that's all I can see. Grace just takes you by the takes you by the collar and say, that's it, I got you. And then I say to people, don't mess with it. If you have been hit by the grace and you stop drinking very easily, do everything you want and you can to stay sober. Take that seriously. Now, many people go back and forth, and they feel very shameful about it. They don't feel good about it. They think it's their fault. And the more they think it's their fault, the more they go back and use, because it makes them feel that it's not their fault for a little time, right? That it's the substance that disrupted their system and their reward system. So I really would encourage anyone to start to do research on the effect of alcohol, and read books like Dopamine Nation of Dr. NLMK, who really talks about addiction and what it does to your brain, what it does to your body. There is this psychological, the the trauma, the whatever reason why you were drinking, like me, was for to connect. But eventually, the substance take over, and those reasons are like far behind, and there's a biological and a system that is disrupt, and that's why you really need to consult when you want to stop your to use, or whatever other addiction you want to stop.
Thank you for sharing that.
And like Dr. Anna Lemke, she was addicted to love novel,
Oh,
and
wow.
it became so disruptive for her that she would, do it between the classes. She would neglect her work, neglect her family, neglect her thing. Dr. Gabor Mate, that you probably know, was, addicted to music and let a woman in labor to go and buy music, right? So it can be anything and everything, right? Where the impacts are way greater than the benefits. But at the beginning, the addiction gave you some benefits. There were some benefit to it. But over time, it passes and then your system gets disrupted. So I say, it's easy to feel shameful. It's easy to say they don't have motivation, they don't have willingness, they're they're just, not disciplined enough. But at one point, it has nothing to do with that. Your systems got hijacked. So
Wow, thank you for clarifying and thank you for bringing up that book. I'm gonna have to go on to I listen to I'm an audiobook fan because I do so much reading already. I'll have to look for that Dopamine Nation. I have not heard of that
yes.
book. So thank you for sharing that. Listeners, people watching, there's so much nuggets of information there that you need to understand. I really appreciate you clarifying that addictions are outside of just alcohol or drugs. It can be so many different things. I've had clients, I know people that are addicted to sex and it has
Oh yeah, that's a common one. Her
destroyed their
book starts
lives.
with that. Her book starts with an
Oh,
example of a man who's addicted to a
wow.
machine. Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to check that out. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. I really appreciate your clarity um, and your knowledge. And obviously, those listening or watching, don't take it for granted that there's literally things out there that you can utilize to educate yourself. And take JT seriously when she says, go seek out help. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't show that you're weak. It shows that you want to move forward, right? You have realizations and you want clarity on that, right? Maybe this is the start of that clarity for you. And I really hope that you are able to move forward, right? There's no reason to be stuck the rest of your life. So, living on autopilot, you have a phrase, the unconscious is the one driving. For someone who has never thought about it that way, what does it actually mean to live on autopilot? And how would you recognize it and how would they recognize it, pardon me, in their own life?
Mm. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I think through story it's easier.
Sure.
Um, so one day I have an I'm a bit of a learning freak. Like I binge onto certain topics, and I one point in my life I binged on everything around narcissistic relationship and also anything to do with gaslighting and everything. And there's a doctor. She's called Dr. Ramani. She's very present on YouTube and other platform, but she has a very good course on gaslighting. It's like 14 lessons, really deep, where you're gonna go in large and in all the subtleties that you want on gaslighting. And I took that course, and I realized when I took that course that I was fawning. Fawning, which is, to please and to please and appease. I was the nice girl. I don't know why, but since I was little, every time somebody would say, "Oh, you're so nice," "Oh, you're so nice," that would irate me. Like you had no idea. That was triggering me. Like I hated people saying that to me because I didn't think I was nice. But not only that, like I thought there was something. And then I realized later that my model was really to fawn. And so to say yes when I wanted to say no, to peace and to a please, but I did not realize I was doing that. I was doing that on automatic pilot. I was doing that. I was not making the choice. Will I be nice to this person because the situation requires, and it's okay, I want to do that and that's fine? Or do I want to say no and have a boundary this time? I was not asking myself those questions. I was automatically nice, the nice girl. I would automatically not rebuttal. I would automatically, avoid conflicts and stuff like that. So that's automatic pilot. So sometimes on automatic pilot, we can be a lot of things. Some people are fighting on automatic pilot. Everything that comes their way, their response is a fighting response. And other people, whatever comes their way, they're gonna fly away, they're gonna avoid, right? So, and they don't even realize it. So I'd say the first thing is once you see which one is your automatic pilot of choice, where in your life you're not aware of how on automatic pilot you are, then it's to start introducing choices and start saying, okay, some people they will say, okay, now I need to be totally the opposite. Like I'll give people who have no boundaries and say yes to everything, right? Then they start to say no to everything. And this doesn't work, right? So that doesn't work. It's not serving you. What I say to people, you need now to educate yourself, and that's what I do a little bit in the work that I do with people, is to educate yourself to make choices. When do you want to say yes? When do you want to say no? Learning about yourself, learning to get to know really yourself and choose, make choices. But if you say no all the time, you go back to the same model. It's just not the same response, right? So you go on automatic pilot of saying no. That's not what you want. You want to introduce the choices. So I think the antidote to automatic pilot is really deep diving into learning to make choices and conscious choices aligned with who we are, where we're going, considering the people around us and the environment where we are. So that's really how I see that.
Yeah, I like that. That is so true. I've never heard of Fawn. I'm gonna have to research that more myself. There's a lot of commonalities in what we've been discussing through this conversation thus far that I can really relate to, or it hits home. Or I have people within my clientele or family that fit within that norm. So again, as I mentioned before, I have fantastic, interesting co like I'd say co-lecturers on my podcast because I learned from it and I really appreciate what you've shared. Gaslighting course. That is interesting. I think so many people, we won't get into that because there's so much else I want to discuss, but those that are listening or watching, if you don't understand gaslighting or you think you understand it, really find out what gaslighting is. And are you a people pleaser? I'm a person that, as you mentioned, yes, 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 yes. Then started creating boundaries, and I said no, 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 no initially too much, and I could relate to what you were saying, and then finding that happy medium. What did I
Hmm.
actually want? And then all the outside noise from people going like, "Oh my gosh, you say yes? What?" He said no. You know what I mean? It was an interesting journey in my life. Sometimes it still happens, but I've gotten very good control of it. But it takes work, right? It's realization, awareness, and then action for me anyway. Maybe other people have different processes or different ways to deal.
What about if you would switch the word control for the word choices and see how it feels
Sure.
for you, right?
Sure.
Because we don't have really control over much things, but we can make choices. And I feel that that's might help you experience more agency. Um, Maybe you just want to try it and see if it works for you.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that. It'll probably, by you bringing that up, there will be other people thinking the same thing. Oh, maybe I should do that. So thank you so much. I take it as very constructive. So I appreciate that. So you have a method called peel back, rewire, rise. Walk me through what these three stages actually look like with a real client without obviously giving away any identity. I share stories all
Hmm.
the time about my clients and their real realizations and their actual real life in order to connect with people. Could you do that for us, please?
Yes. So at one point, I have a woman who has a business. She just sold her business, and she has to stay for a certain amount of time, afterwards. I do that a lot. I work a lot with people who sell their business. And when she comes to me because she says, I first the due diligence nowadays kills people. Like the due diligences are so thorough, so difficult, and lots of sales don't go through and everything. So she was very tired, but she was thinking about, okay, now I'm gonna have all this money coming my way, but I don't really know who I am. I took over that family business because this is what was expected of me, but I don't really know who I am. I never really made choices for myself. So the peel back is all the stories we tell ourselves. Like I was telling you earlier, all the stories we tell ourselves. Like I need to, I'm the banking machine for the family. I need to provide for everybody. If I don't provide, people are going to reject me and not going to love me. In order to be loved, I need to do this and I need to do that. So what peel back is like we just uncover all the subconscious stories that people tell themselves. And really, I say the subconscious one because every time people say, oh my God, yes, I see that I'm telling myself that now. I can see it now that it came to their conscious. They say, wow, yeah, I was not conscious of it, but yeah, that's really what I was telling myself. So that's the first thing. Then it's about the rewire is really okay. Those stories, I can continue my life and telling myself the same story. I know what the outcome will be. I know because I know what the outcome of, thinking that I need to provide for everybody is. I know what the outcome of not saying no because I'm afraid I'm not going to be loved. I know what the outcome of this is. Now I want different outcomes, so I need to change the story. So the rewire is really, we literally go into hypnosis and we rewire for what people want. So in that case, which was very interesting, is we uncovered things that she loved to do when she was a child that she totally forgotten about, that she never allowed herself to do, which was drawing and writing. And she was a businesswoman, right? And that was not in the image that people would have of her, and even her children would have of her. So what happened is that she eventually, for some reasons that I don't want to talk here because that would be revealing too much about her, but she eventually, in the rise part, the rise is the once you're rewired, is really how are you going to impact the world now? So she started, how are you going to impact your life, the life of others, your community, etc. And she started to write children's books and they are amazing. So never ever she would have thought that she would have been from being a businesswoman with you know that big thing really well. And people were asking her, like, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? And she says, I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time. Now, when she starts to be able to say to people, oh, I write books, and it's just like a totally different posture, and she's full of happiness. I introduced her also to someone that's helping her now make it a reality. But that's an example of rewire, of peel back, rewire, and then rise.
That's awesome. Because the reason I think that's fantastic is I look at sometimes people need structure in order to adapt, move forward, change, realization. And that's very, it's not that it's not difficult, but it's structured enough that somebody can look at it, and you explained it very well. They can apply it to their lives. Obviously, utilizing services from you would certainly help them even more, or somebody that's within their sphere of where they live.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not easy for them to reach out, but regardless, sometimes I find that coaches or people that educate or serve overcomplicate things, and they don't make it. They don't. I hate to use this, and you probably have better wording for it. They don't dumb it down enough for people. They keep the $20 university words or college words. It's too above a person where they're currently at, and it's not that what you've designed or developed is simplistic by nature. It's very therapeutic and helpful. I hear that, but it's simple for a person to digest.
Yeah.
That's what I got from you. So thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on?
Well, I would add that the trickiest part is really the peel back, because even myself, right? I
Hmm.
sometimes need support to be able to peel back, like to go to the subconscious stories that I'm telling myself. So that's, I would say, the trickiest part. If you, and there's different ways to do that. You can do that through arts. You can do that. I was on a podcast that's called 10 Tracks, where you bring 10 songs that talk about your life. Doing that exercise was a big subconscious awareness exercise, because I came out with songs and then I saw how they fit all together in the story. There was a lot of subconscious messages in there. So there's a lot of ways to get information from your subconscious. But one of the really good one is hypnosis, because you do are in a state where you have access to that information very easily. So that's why I would say the peel back part is the part that most coaches just skip, because it's like, let's do the rewire, but if you have not peeled back, it's I find it difficult to rewire.
Wow. Thank you for that clarification. Um, yeah, I look forward to actually going back over my notes and listening to this conversation again. And the reason I bring that up is for those listening or watching. I've listened to podcasts, I've reread books, gone over notes from conferences more than once, because we only can grasp so much initially. But if you have that, I don't know, that twang in you, that fuzzy or warm and fuzzy or anything through this conversation, you owe it to yourself. Put some more effort in, put some more energy in. We are all worthy, we're all unique like our fingerprints, and we deserve to shine in our own ways, right? Don't give up on yourself. It's what I wanted to end that with. And right. So let's talk about book writing, right? I talk about this because I know writing my own book was one of the most cathartic things I'd ever done. 5.5 months of roller coaster, right? Realizations, moments that caught me off guards, memories I hadn't let myself sit in for years, the quiet little celebrations I never really gave myself or told anybody about. It was really an emotional circumstance, which I found some days very stressful and emotional, other days very gratifying. So when our guest has written their own book, I always want to know what they went through, what the process was. Was there a cost? What did it give you?
So my book is written but not edited yet. So
Yeah.
not published yet. I mean,
Yep.
so I've started probably 1,000 books in my life. One page.
Wow.
Right? Like one
That's
page. Oh yeah, one page. Okay, that's it, right? And then one day I was in a group. I was in a women's group, business women's group, and we were in a seminar. And it, you kind of bounce ideas and everything. And suddenly my book became clear in front of me, as clear as when the day I said I'm going to become a hypnotherapist, as clear as the day that I said I'm going to stop drinking, as clear as that, those total clarity moments. So then I knew exactly what I was going to do. So then after, for me, it was, I would say, a logistic more. And then it was to confront myself with um, language. And like I've written in French, of course, but it was really about my ideas clear, like what's between my mind and what's written, is it clear? And my books comprise a lot of other people in this book, so that so I had their parts and I kind of put all the parts together. Some I had to rewrite. So it was a pleasant experience. And then lately, my father came for a couple days in vacation, and I printed it, and he left. He's in Edmonton actually now. He left to go west. He's 83 years old, and he left with his van to go out west and just go and explore the world for the summer. And he took my book with him, and he's reading it, and now he's telling me a lot. He's giving me a lot of feedback because he's a very good reader, and so that's an interesting process too. So yeah,
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, do you have any idea when it'll be published?
I need to find the publisher. I
Oh,
I don't have a
I,
publisher yet.
I'll tell you the best way to get past it and you can actually pick up on a more national level is I would look at self-publishing. It is more powerful than people realize. Um, it has its hiccups, but self-publishing is because I dealt with a publisher that specializes in dealing with people that self-publish and takes you through the process because it can be daunting, right? So that's just my piece of advice.
Mhm.
After having conversation with you thus far and understanding where you're coming from, that book needs to come out sooner than later.
I
I'm
know
just
this book has to come out. That I know for sure. I
right.
agree. Thank you for saying
Yes, sometimes buried treasure needs to come to the top, right? It needs to
that.
be and it needs to be dug up and brought to the top for everybody to be able to appreciate it. So, did you write this book specifically? Was there a specific person in mind, or was it just something that you needed to release because of your circumstances and your journey of life?
No, my idea is always about impact in terms of, it's a book about sobriety, but it's a book about sobriety in a very different angle. I believe that what's been written so far. But really, the idea for me is I had anybody who's drinking, let's say, every week in mind.
Okay. So it's gonna fit where it needs to fit. It's
Exactly.
basically, yeah. So I appreciate that. I look forward to finding out. You'll have to reach out to me when it's
I
released,
will.
and
I
we'll
will
have
for
you
sure.
back on this show and dive deeper into the book, um, if you're interested. So I would love that.
Absolutely.
So a lot of clients are successful by every external measure, and in your words, living 7 out of 10 life. What does that
Mm.
actually look like day to day, and why do so few people say it out loud?
So this came really by realization. When I do have a new client, I sent an extensive questionnaire, and I realized that the statistic of my clients, they're at a 7 out of 10. When I ask them, "Where are you in your life right now?" There is a 7 out of 10. But if you would see those people on the street, you think they'd have a 10 out of 10 life. So they have the career, they've been successful, they're doing well. They looks like they have it all together. But internally they feel at a 7. So the idea that I have developed through my practice is, instead of aiming for the 10 out of 10 illusionary life, which would always move, if you know a billionaire, you would know that if he has only 1 billion, he feels unhappy because this other guy has 13 billion. And if you have this guy who's 100 million, he looks at this other guy who's a billion, and so on and so forth. So even if you have a 10 out of 10 life, you will find ways most of the time to make it seem like it's a 7 or it's a 6. So what I say to people is start by creating artificially 10 out of 10 moments, micro moments, 10 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, an hour. And then it's going to become relevant for your subconscious brain that this is what you look for in your life. You don't look for a 10 out of 10 life, you look for a 10 out of 10 moments. And so every day you start to do it artificially. You create them. Like I go on my terrace, I live in the forest, so I go in the terrace on the hammock with my dog and we have a cuddle moment, and that's a 10 out of 10 moments for me. Right? I meet somebody in the street that I haven't seen for years. I take the time to have the amazing conversation with her. That's a 10 out of 10 moments. And I'm starting to tell my brain that's relevant to me. I want more of that. The same way when you buy a Volkswagen or you're pregnant, you start to see the pregnant woman, you start to see the Volkswagen. They were all there before, but you didn't see them. So what I say to people is when you do that, you start to create 10 out of 10 moments in your life. And from moments to moments, you start to experience your life differently. And instead of focusing on the gap between the 7 and the 10, you start to focus on those 10 out of 10 moments. So that's how I've developed that.
That's awesome. I could, it's great when you're talking about some of this stuff and sharing stories. I could, in my mind's eye, I could see you with your dog cuddling, right? It is good though. We need, many people do though. They need that visual, that a person that's good at articulating and storytelling, which you're very good at. So thank you for that. It reminded me of sadly my girl dog passed away a couple of years ago. She was
Mm,
just shy of 14 years old, a week shy of 14,
mm,
unfortunately. And I had those moments. And really, when I think about it, I wish I would have had more 10 out of 10 moments with her when she was alive. And how many times we
mm.
do that, not just with our animals, with people around us, and then it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel we're just so aiming for something that once we have it anyway, it's going to be meaningless sometimes, like that new car, that new house. Yeah, it's nice, but I mean, you know, but creating those moments and multiplying them and being the artisan of it, making choices, that's really, it's coming full circle with the idea of living on autopilot, right? That's the total opposite of living on autopilot.
Yeah, it certainly is. And this kind of, we can segue into the lonely middle. You call the space between an old identity and a new one lonely and uncharted. Why does that middle stretch feel so isolating, pardon me, even for people who are surrounded by family, colleagues, and friends? I know myself, I've been in circumstances where I'm in around family, colleagues, and friends, and I still feel alone. I still feel isolated. So could you please talk about that?
Mm. In a transformation, there is that fast, this space where you're no longer the person you were before. You're not yet the one you're becoming, and you're experiencing going into both worlds. And in that transformation, going into those both worlds, you are also getting to know yourself differently than what you have been so far. So, because you're becoming different and transforming, it also transforms your relationship with other people. Some people will be drawn closer, some people will be drawn further. Some people who were not even interested in having a relationship will come very, very close, and some others will go very far away. I think that moment of transformation where we really go within and get to know ourselves and get to make the choices of who we are becoming, who we want to become. If we do it with too much pressure, too much expectations from others, then we are kind of derailing the process again to meet other people's expectations or things that have been, that we've decided that we would do to please others or to meet, whatever social expectations. So that moment, I think, it is to celebrate that moment where you feel alone with yourself and unique within yourself in your reality. If you're not disconnected, if you remain connected to yourself, I think it's a blessing. It's
Mhm.
a something to savor.
Absolutely. Um, I've been working on that, and I think I will till the day I take my last breath. Personal development and realization, and sitting in those moments and accepting them, not hiding from them, not running
Mm.
from them, not letting have other people's expectations of me become my reality. So I appreciate you talking about that because I'd be willing to bet, and I'd probably be very high in the numbers of how many people listening or watching that have that stuck moment, that isolation moment, and they need to realize there's hope is something that has died in a lot of people. I don't know if you agree with that. They're living on that hamster wheel and they're stuck.
Well, I feel that there's two fears that are really preventing people from transform. And I think they're intertwined, like what the fear of being alone, like if I transform, like if I stop drinking, I'm going to lose my friend, whatever it is, right? But there's another tribe, but you just don't know that tribe, but there is another tribe. And then the other one is the fear of judgment. So the fear of judgment really, and that's normal. This is hardwired, right? Because if you are judged and ostracized and kicked out of the tribe, you were not surviving in our old wired, ways. But in the new world today, there's plenty of other tribes. There's plenty of other, communities where we can, belong and find people that share the same values and same way of living. Like the fear of what people are going to think of us and the fear of being judged. I think probably 95% of my clients at one point or another of the work we're going to do together, we're going to hit that one. It's a big major one. And it's very interesting because I always say to them, there's a belief that we work, which is um, the judgment belongs to whom judges. So when somebody judges you, it talks to you, it informs you about that person. It shows you how they see the world, how they see you. It's not bad, it's not good. It's really about who they are. So when somebody judges you, you're learning about them. And really the sentence, because each session I do a recording for my client that they listen to between each of the session. And one of the sentence that probably most of my clients have had in their recording is that judgment belongs to whom judges. It informs me about them.
I
And
love
and
that.
once you switch that posture, it's not about, oh, I'm going to do everything I want, like I want, and blah, blah, blah. It's more, okay, now I'm going to make healthy choices for myself, aligned on my objective, my vision, my values, and my community. So,
That's great. What popped into my mindset was when people tell you something, believe them, right?
oh, yes.
Right? Whether it's judging you directly, as you meant, like judgment, or they're talking about somebody else or a group or politics or religion or health or whatever, people are sharing and they're judging a circumstance or making a statement about that circumstance, believe them,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Don't make excuses for them. You don't have to, right? Just believe that's what it is. And I love that it was very, you articulated it very well. So thank you so much. I want to go on to another section. Is there anything else that you'd like to share to close that off?
No, that's, I think we've covered it pretty much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So when it comes to personal development, you have a contrarian take that most personal development runs on the fuel of feeling broken. Unpack
Mm.
that for me. What's wrong with the fix yourself model that so much of this industry is built on?
Yeah, I hate anything that I hate. It's powerful, but I dislike, don't use anything that has to do with your full potential, stepping out of your comfort zone. The best version of me. I want to be a better version of me. That means nothing for your subconscious brain. It means nothing when you try to go into a direction. It means nothing. Also, it stems from you're not good enough yet, right? You're not good enough. And that's the second family of belief that's the most common, right? I can't connect. I'm not good enough. And this is not available to me. Those are kind of the three families that are the most common in the family of beliefs. And, um, everything, a lot of the work or the approach that I see is really based itself and starts with, well, it's not enough. You're not enough. So you need to be a better version of yourself. So you need to go to your full potential. You already are at your full potential today. You really are the best version you can be today. And I say to people, from that posture, what do you want to experience in life next? What kind of life experience do you want next? So when people come to see me and they say, oh, I have this ADD or I have this or I have that, I say, fantastic. I'm happy you have a diagnosis and you can work with your psychologist, your psychiatrist. But here, tell me, what do you want to experience differently? And then they will say, well, I want to be able to listen to my wife when she talks. Okay, let's work, let's go and work on that. Let's work on tangibles, on things. But I'm not using labels either with people. So I think a lot of the work is really starting from that point. It always needs to be better. So I say to people, you really are already your full potential today. You really are the best version of yourself today. There's no other imaginative version of you. But how do you want to experience life? And now, what do you need to be in order to experience life that way? What is it that you want to transform? And what is it that you want to keep? Right? So that's really my approach that I've developed, kind of being fed up of
Well,
hearing all those empty words.
that's fair. So this is going to be the final question.
Yeah.
JT, there's someone listening right now who is exactly where you were in that frozen interview, capable,
Mm.
accomplished, and quietly convinced that if they just push harder or figure it out on their own, it will finally click. Someone who has been on the edge of giving up on themselves more than once. What do you want them to hear before this episode ends about giving a heck and not giving up?
Mm. Such a good question. I think believe your body, I would say is the first thing. Like if you feel like you're frozen, if you feel you're not comfortable in your body, if you feel it doesn't feel right, believe your body. Like trust your body, trust what you're feeling. Start with that. Trust that this is true. It is true to you. No matter what other people say, this is true to you. And trust that. Start there. From there, I would say go and seek support. So I have a 3-step model to transformation. And one of them, the first step is really to build a team around you. And that's go and seek support. Build a team around you of people who will support you, who you are going to be the absolute most important things that they do. That when they are with you, you're the most important thing. And that's what I would say. Believe what you're feeling.
That's awesome. It's like you were talking about earlier. When you lose one tribe, you can gain another, right? There's tribes out there that are meant for you and you're meant for them. Your worlds can overlap. You can still have your unique identity. You can be unique to who you are and your growth and your evolution and your climb, but you don't have to be stuck. There's somebody out there. There just
Yeah,
is.
when we're little, we don't have choice. The tribe is the one that is around us. That's the tribe. It's not a tribe we've chosen, but as we've grown up, we can absolutely choose.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that. JT, thank you. This conversation is honest in a way that a lot of self-improvement conversations are not. because you're not selling anyone on being broken. You're showing people what it looks like to build from strength. What strikes me most about you and what you shared today is the gap between knowing and doing is not a character flaw. It is
Mm.
simply where the real work actually lives. You have spent your whole career learning how to work in that exact space. JT, where's the best place for our listeners to find your work, learn more about Peel Back, Rewire, Rise, and reach out if this conversation stirred something in them?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is to book a strategy call. It's a 30 minutes free call and it's on my website, jt at hypnocoach.ca or hypnocoach.ca is my website. Sorry, JT is the address, but hypnocoach.ca, you can go there, you can sign up to my newsletter and you can book a 30 minutes free call. I'm a lot on LinkedIn as well. I publish and I write pretty much every week on my newsletter.
That's fantastic. For those new to the Give a Heck podcast, go to giveaheck.com, go to the top, click podcast. You will find detailed show notes for JT. There'll be a summary of this episode along with full show notes as well. In regards to the transcript, all her social media links, her website, so that you can easily find this. You don't have to necessarily pull over, rewind this, do whatever. Just go to giveaheck.com, a one-stop shop to even access if you want to find it easily on YouTube and actually watch it. Maybe you're a person that is stimulated more by visual than you are just auditory. So I give the best of both worlds. JT, is there any final words you would like to leave with our audience before I wrap up the show?
No, I just want to thank you for your questions and how prepared and interested you are in the topic of, self-development and discovery of self. And I think I really enjoyed the time here. Thank you.
Th- Thank you so much too. It works well. We both were intrigued with one another and it just flowed well. The conversation was very in depth, but not so in depth that people can't follow along and stay engaged. So thank you so much to our listeners and viewers. Thank you for investing your time with us today. We do not take that lightly. If this episode resonated with you, please share it. When you share an episode, it helps this message reach more people so they too can give a heck and live with purpose and intention. Please subscribe to the Give a Heck podcast on your favorite platform and leave a comment or review. It helps the show grow and allows more people to discover conversations that challenge them to step up and live intentionally. Until next time, live life on purpose and not by accident. And remember, it's never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.